there really other measures that could be taken to help curb election malpractice in Nigeria?
Well, both the people and the government leaders have roles to play. The people must be committed to exercise their rights without fear or favor. And the people who lead, people who hold these positions, must abide by the rules and must implement the rules to the letter. Yes, there are so many things wrong with our electoral processes, and there are so many things that need to be done to make these elections fair. One, what I said earlier on, political parties are the first level of successful electoral processes. The political parties must conduct free and fair congresses to elect officials of their party. The political parties must conduct free, fair, and credible and transparent primaries to elect candidates for their parties, not to select candidates for their parties. These are parts of the things that should be improved upon for the electoral process in Nigeria to work. It's not just INEC. From registration of voters to registration of parties, to running of parties, to funding of parties, to primaries and parties, before you now get into the electoral process itself, the general elections. So if the foundation is weak from the political parties, the building, which is at the electoral commission level, will be weak. If the foundation is strong, the political party processes, then the electoral bodies also will respect the wills and the wishes of the parties. So it's both ways, the political parties, the electoral bodies, and of course, the third piece is the judiciary, the courts, who are always charged with the responsibility of, handling litigations that come as a result of processes in the parties and processes in the elections itself. If the judiciary is strong, independent, viral, free, and fair and firm, then whatever decisions the people make at the polls will be confirmed in the courts. Not the case of you lose an election, you run to the courts, you pay billions of naira to the courts or to the judges, and they pronounce you winner. So all these are components that need to be improved upon for the electoral process to work perfectly.
The political climate of Nigeria does not seem promising. There are lots of forces against the corporate existence of Nigeria. We have IPOP of Biafra seeking for the independence of Biafra. We have Afeni Fera seriously working for the independence of Oduduwa Republic. As a learned gentleman and a long-term player in the Nigerian politics, what do you think is the solution to all these agitations?
Well, before we get to the solution, we have to know what the problems are. The
Okay.
problems are inequalities, you know. Um, Now, talking about Nigeria as a whole, if we have firm, fair leaders of the nation, these leaders will distribute the resources of the nation evenly. These leaders will make sure that everybody has a fighting opportunity to enjoy the commonwealth of the nation. Every region will see that they have equal access to projects, equal access to employments, equal access to appointments, equal access to infrastructure. But when this don't happen, when you elect people who believe they are representing their own zone or representing their own ethnic group, and they remove their eyes from the other zones, then those zones will begin to agitate, or those tribes will begin to agitate. This is what is happening in Nigeria. There is no equitable distribution of resources. And if you don't give to every zone equally,
Okay.
then they will agitate. Especially in the case of the southern part of Nigeria, who laid the golden egg for Nigerian resources. We are treated as if we are not part of the nation, as if we don't own an equal share of the resources. That is why you have these agitations. If you have presidents, and I'm not particularizing on this particular one, even though it is the incidents are worse in this one. Okay. If we have leaders over the years who are fair-minded, who look at the nation as one entity, who don't look at the nation as being divided on sectional basis. If we look at the nation as one and develop the nation as one and distribute infrastructures to these zones as one nation, then there'll be no need for agitations. But because the resources are so evenly distributed, so unevenly distributed, some people are now made to feel like second-class citizens in their own country. That is why you have agitations of IPOB. That is why you have agitations of Afenifere. That is why you have the agitations in the Middle Belt, because they see that they are not considered part of this nation. And if you are not considered as part of the nation, then you have a right to agitate to be independent of those that are destroying the Commonwealth. So if we have a nation that is run as one, resources are distributed evenly, there'll be no agitations for separatist movements. But as long as this does not happen, there continue to be agitation. But on a second level, now making an analogy, if you have a house, okay, if you have a house and all the family members live in the house, like Nigeria is a house, and all the component parts of Nigeria are like family members of the house built. And at some point, somebody believes he now has enough money to go and build his own house outside. You don't say, no, you must live in this house. You let the person go and build their own house and create their own identity. For instance, if you come in a family now, my father built a house, in his heydays, and all the children were living in the house. When we now grow up and decide to get a land and build our own house and move out, my father cannot say, no, you should remain in this house. We have the right to go and build our own house, get our own compound, and be comfortable. That is also another aspect of the separatist movements. If the Igbos, for instance, if the Igbo decide that they want to leave the nation called Nigeria, there is still a freedom of movement. Even though it doesn't have to be done by force, if there is referendum and people believe that they want a separate nation, the nation Nigeria has no right, even according to the UN Charter of Freedom, okay, they don't have the right to say, no, you must remain in Nigeria. Days are gone when we used to say Nigeria is a strong, virile, indissoluble, indivisible nation. There are certain factors that have made Nigeria divisible now. The factors we mentioned before, apart from also the psychological and natural factors of if you are tired of living in a house, yes, that your father built way back, and you want to go and build your own house, you have a right to go and build your own house and live in your own house. It happens all over the world. The case of Nigeria should not be different. And we should not, because we want to preach unity that no longer exists, yeah, and they will be shedding blood and destroying people's lives and all that. In Ethiopia, it happened. Eritrea got their own nation. In the old Soviet Union, they got divided into many nations. A lot of in Czechoslovakia, they divided. They have Czech and Slovak Republic. So the history is there. The records are there. The precedents are there. And if you see that people go about fighting liberation wars, at the end of the day, you now find out that it is better to come together at a round table and discuss peace and discuss peaceful movements instead of letting people be killed unnecessarily. I hope it doesn't come to that in Nigeria. If people want to go, they're free to go.
100 years of the amalgamation of the northern and southern protectorates of Nigeria by Lord Lugard, there are still protracted problems of national unity and integration. Do you share in the view that this exercise was ab initio not done with the good interests of Nigeria at heart?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The margin of the Northern Protectorate and the Southern Protectorate in 1914 shouldn't have taken place at all, because we are different people. And this amalgamation was done then not for the interest of Nigeria. It was a business transaction done by the British people, because they wanted to control larger territories of resources. The then Royal Niger Company and so on and so forth. They brought people who have no relationship with each other and made them one. It didn't work, ab initio. And if you look at some of us who have looked at the wordings of that agreement, you will see that that agreement was signed to be in force for 100 years.
Okay.
So that tells you it was more or less a business agreement. So that agreement, the 100 years expired in 2014. It was signed in 1914 to be valid for 100 years. And by a function of law, by natural forces, the agreement is supposed to have expired in 2014. And that is part of the agitations of some of the liberation and separatist movements, that the institution called Nigeria, the agreement that brought in this corporate entity called Nigeria, was 100 years. And the 100 years expired in 2014. So we need to go our separate ways. If that is what will solve the problem. Of course, like I said earlier on, the agreement wasn't done to make Nigeria a nation. It was a business transaction of the colonial masters that wanted a bigger area of influence for their businesses, not because they were interested in development of Nigeria as a nation. Besides, if you look at the people from the south and the people from the north, they are totally different people, different cultures, different languages, different religions, different orientations, different social styles, different types of behavior. So that is why Nigeria has not worked, because it wasn't supposed to be one nation. We were not homogeneous. When that agreement was made, it was made between groups that were not homogeneous. Nigeria has 300 and something languages or ethnic groups. You come and lump all these people together and you think and believe it will work. It has never worked and may not work.
The 2023 general election is yet another opportunity for Nigerians to get it right in her elections. Do you think that the 2023 general election will be any different from previous elections?
I don't think it will. I don't want to sound alarmist, but we have to call a spade a spade. The elections of 2023 will be terrible. The signs are written all over Nigeria. The signs are all over the place that there will be so many factors involved, factors of tribalism, factors of nepotism, factors of security, factors of religious divide. It is going to be a watershed in the Nigerian political history, the 2023 elections. I don't know whether Nigeria will survive beyond then. Nobody knows tomorrow, but you see from what happens today and be able to predict a little bit what will happen tomorrow. The factors surrounding the corporate existence of Nigeria today are so terrible and so disastrous that they will affect the 2023 elections, starting with the political parties. Political parties, people who are looking for primaries, for tickets in political parties, will do everything, including killing, to get tickets. And they will never care about the interests of the people. Unfortunately, most people who run for offices in Nigeria, they come and say, I'm into it for service. What service? Yes, they're into it for service, but service of their pockets, not service of the people. So these things will influence a whole lot. People have seen that it is basically only government that works now in our society. All the resources are concentrated in governments. Factors that make people enjoy their fleeting lives are no longer existent. Everybody relies in whatever they get from government. And so everybody now wants to get into government. The people themselves have also lost faith in the leaders. The people no longer want to cast their votes based on the fact that they believe somebody is qualified for a position. They cast their vote based on the fact that we can get something from this man. Because if in the 4 years he's going to be in that office, he or she is not going to remember us. So we might as well get whatever we can from them, because they will never come back to us until the next 4 years. So all these things lead up to the fact that 2023 election will be fiercely fought at every level, at the party level, at ethnic levels, at electoral levels, and most of all, at the judicial levels. The judiciary has become part of the problems. Everybody, they will say, well, declare me elected, let somebody go to court. Because they know when they go to court, it's a totally different ballgame. A judge or a tribunal can look you in the face, and maybe they write two judgments and put in their pockets. Whoever gives you more money, they bring out the judgment for the person and read. Fortunately, that is what is happening in Nigeria. So all these things are going to contribute to make 2023 an unfortunately volatile political process in Nigeria.
There is the belief that Igbo presidency and restructuring will calm some of the tensions in Nigeria and reposition Nigeria for greatness. Do you share this view?
Well, Nigeria is called a tripod. Nigeria is like a table on three legs. The Igbo, the Yoruba, and the Hausas. And you can see in the history of Nigeria, political presidential leadership of Nigeria, the other two tribes, the Yorubas and the Hausas, have held political power in this country over the years, except for the period they gave it to President Jonathan from South, which was a miracle. He didn't set out to go and be president. In fact, he didn't know how he became president, like he has said in many ways. The reason why Nigeria has been in so much crisis and tumult over the years is because the Igbos have not been given the opportunity to produce the president. And that is also part of why we've been having these agitations of separatist movements. So that could be the most basic minimum to ensure peace in Nigeria, that the president of Nigeria in 2023, if Nigeria remains, then must be from the Southeast, an Igbo man. That will be the basic minimum condition of peace in Nigeria. And of course, historically speaking, you see that Igbos represent the spirit of this nation, the progress of this nation. The most enterprising people in the world are Igbos. The most enterprising and industrious people in Nigeria are the Igbos. Any place you see an Igbo man, he or she excels with little or nothing. During the war, Igbos involved in research projects and developed things that even up to now have not been developed by some of the Western leaders. So until the Igbo man is given the opportunity to lead Nigeria, Nigeria will continue to wobble. So yes, to answer your question, the Igbos producing the president in 2023, will be a significant leap for the progress of Nigeria. Following that also is the restructuring. Yes, we have talked about that earlier on. The reason also, part of the reasons why we have so much problems in Nigeria is that powers of the nation are concentrated at the top. If we restructure the nation, give every region opportunity to lead themselves, to be self-governing like we had in the past, then the powers at the top will be reduced. The pressures at the top will be reduced. Decisions will be made at the zones as it affects their areas. They will have a sense of belonging and a sense of balance in the nation. And then, of course, coming with restructuring also, financial restructuring. If the nation is restructured, every zone has control of their resources, have control of their finances. But the way it is now, everything is shared at Abuja and is based on nepotistic and primordial considerations. So if we restructure the nation, we will have much more progress. Nations will develop their resources Right now, people just believe you go to Abuja, get part of a federal federation allocation, and come home. People, regions, and states are not developing the natural resources that are bound in the place. In those days, when there were Eastern region, Western region, Midwest, and all that, the regions developed resources in their place and developed them into commercial quantity, and we're exporting them, and we're using the money to develop their zones. But now these things have been abandoned because everything is concentrated at the federal unitary. So if the nation is restructured, it will ease a lot of pains. Part of restructuring should also include that zones have the rights to self-determination. If you want to now become your own nation, you have the right to do that, following what I was saying earlier on. So that should be part of the requirement, I mean, part of the provisions of restructuring. If at the end of the day you believe you'll be now better off as an independent nation,
Nation
you should be given the opportunity
opportunity to go.
to go.